Steve Batista, and you've mentioned the federal desktop core configuration several times. Part of that OMB mandate is to require products and service vendors that create solutions. They have to match and work underneath those conditions. Are you starting to see that within your acquisition space, that you need to meet that requirement?
We actually have in my headquarters in Seabrook, Maryland, we have a FDCC compliant image that we use and we demonstrate to customers. That mandate also applies to any machines that we may be using on their network. So it's not just the government-owned assets associated with that, but any connectivity. So I can't speak for our industry's absorption and acceptance of that outside of that mandate because it really does lock down the image, and as we should. But I don't know how quick it will take hold. But we, within my group specifically, do have an image, and we do employ it anywhere where we have connectivity requirements.
I'm not familiar with those specific requirements, but I can speak at a broader point to what we see in endpoint trends. And really the way I'm looking at it for endpoint strategy is that the core operating system is really becoming less and less important and less attacked. And I see that how we view the endpoint in the future is not necessarily by what OS it's on, it's by what browser is on there. And so we're looking at how can we best secure the browser, because that is the source of infection, it's the vector of introduction of malcode, and looking at next generation browser security as well as endpoint is key.
And the FDCC does indicate what browser settings are appropriate for the platform.
Last comments or questions? Up front.
Yeah, Kelly Brown, EM Solutions. The comment, Chris, that you made about $100 billion that the bad guys have and the investment, that certainly is a wake-up call for me. And I just wondered if if that trend continues, do you have any ideas what can be done to try to get ahead of that? I mean, that's a sheer mismatch at all levels. So if you could address that.
It almost appears untenable, and there's really, I was watching the coverage yesterday on the bombing of Manhattan and how they had the video of this gun cyclist, and you can look at this, they're going to catch this guy. And I don't know if they caught him yet, but if there's one crime with unlimited opportunity and almost an infinitely impossible chance of getting caught, it's online. There is an infinite amount of revenue that can be attained, and there's almost no chance of being caught. And there are a couple reasons for that. I think one is international law enforcement and linkages are tenable at best. But I think if we look at what's going on in our own country, and I've talked to our law enforcement about this, and they'll go over to Lagos, Nigeria, track down a fraud case. But law enforcement in some other countries, the rich Americans getting ripped off may not be a very high priority for them. And that's just the practical reality of what's going on around the world. And so I think we need to figure out how we can eliminate some of these threats coming in from overseas and focus on the bad guys inside our country. And so there are different approaches there. I was talking to a colleague who was recently visiting China, and certainly good or bad or indifferent, internet connectivity in China is different than here. And one thing she told me, she said, Chris, when I was using my POP email, I didn't get any spam, and I didn't get any viruses. It might have been a little bit slower, but it was the cleanest email I've ever had. And so while it's a different debate as to what role government should play in filtering network traffic, certainly I think we should ask ourselves, look at the Federal Trade Commission. I had dinner with Chairman Majoris last year and the CEO of McAfee, and I said, we all love the Federal Trade Commission. The only reason anyone's actually heard of you is because we stopped getting calls at dinner. I said, what is going to happen? We're all on voice over IP. Do those guys, those spammers in Lagos, Nigeria, do you think they adhere to your no-call list? And that got her attention. And so we have had our government help regulate some of this to keep this spam off our dinner table. And maybe it's something that we need to take a look at.
Hi, again, I don't know whether this fits into this discussion or not, but I'll try it, just because you're both here, or all three of you are here. It seems to me that I've always heard that when it comes to vulnerabilities, the human component is the most vulnerable, much more than the technology, and a lot of that has to do with passwords and strong passwords and things of that nature. So that if there is some bad thing that occurs and can perhaps be traced to a particular computer, how do you know that the person who was on the computer is really the person who owned that computer? That's a forensics kind of question and comes up all the time. Well, the solution to that might lie, or some part of the solution might lie in biometric type devices, but there's not been much acceptance of biometric device. Is there stuff going on in that area, and do you see, for example, you're a small business, your customers becoming more accepting of it, or is there a way around that conundrum? Because telling everybody to have 50 strong passwords for all of the different things that they log into and to change them every week, that isn't going to fly. Never did, never will. So what is the other alternative?
Well, biometrics is one of our research areas that we're clearly investing in. The traction is probably not as fast as we would like it to be. But it is, whether it's a retinal scan or fingerprint, there's also positioning technologies. Let me try to describe it. Let's say if I have a unclassed responsibility here and a classified responsibility, or a secret responsibility here, and it's skiffed for that. Depending on where I turn my chair, that would activate that environment. And so there's ergonomics actually factored into it. So they're trying to figure out new ways to protect both the information, but also identify the actual belly button who may be doing it. We've had to go as far as actually film a recurring behavior to actually take action. So even though you have what was the IP, what were the keystrokes, how did this person know the complex password, with capital letters and ones, and it is difficult to, once you know who it is, to actually take action, and we're hoping that'll become easier over time. But I think the biometrics would make that it would be a leap in our ability to actually identify the individual beyond just the technological means of what was the IP address and